a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Death of Caylee Anthony. Caylee Marie Anthony was a 2-year-old American girl who lived in Orlando, Florida, with her mother, Caylee Marie Anthony, and her maternal grandparents, George and Cindy Anthony. On July 15, 2008, she was reported missing in a call made by Cindy, who said she had not seen Caylee for 31 days and that Caylee's car smelled like a dead body had been inside it. Cindy said Caylee had given varied explanations as to Caylee's whereabouts before finally telling her that she had not seen Caylee for weeks. Caylee lied to detectives, telling them Caylee had been kidnapped by a nanny on June 9, and that she had been trying to find her, too frightened to alert the authorities. She was charged with first-degree murder in October 2008 and pleaded not guilty. On December 11, 2008, Caylee's skeletal remains were found with a blanket inside a trash bag in a wooded area near the family home. Investigative reports and trial testimony alternated between duct tape being found near the front of the skull and on the mouth of the skull. The medical examiner mentioned duct tape as one reason she ruled the death a homicide, but officially listed it as death by undetermined means. The trial lasted 6 weeks, from May to July 2011. The prosecution sought the death penalty and alleged Caylee wished to free herself from parental responsibilities and murdered her daughter by administering chloroform and applying duct tape. The defense team, led by Jose Baez, countered that the child had drowned accidentally in the family's swimming pool on June 16, 2008, and that George Anthony disposed of the body. The defense contended that Caylee lied about this and other issues because of a dysfunctional upbringing, which they said included sexual abuse by her father. The defense did not present evidence as to how Caylee died, nor evidence that Caylee was sexually abused as a child, but challenged every piece of the prosecution's evidence, calling much of it fantasy forensics. Caylee did not testify. On July 5, 2011, the jury found Caylee not guilty of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, and aggravated manslaughter of a child, but guilty of 4 misdemeanor counts of providing false information to a law enforcement officer. With credit for time served, she was released on July 17, 2011. A Florida appeals court overturned 2 of the misdemeanor convictions on January 25, 2013. The not guilty murder verdict was greeted with public outrage and was both attacked and defended by media and legal commentators. Some complained that the jury misunderstood the meaning of reasonable doubt, while others said the prosecution relied too heavily on the defendant's allegedly poor moral character, because they had been unable to show conclusively how the victim had died. Time magazine described the case as the social media trial of the century. Disappearance. According to Caylee Anthony's father, George Anthony, Caylee left the family's home on June 16, 2008, taking her daughter Caylee with her, and did not return for 31 days. Caylee's mother Cindy asked repeatedly during the month to see Caylee, but Caylee claimed that she was too busy with a work assignment in Tampa, Florida. At other times, she said Caylee was with a nanny, who Caylee identified by the name of Zenaida Zanny Fernandez-Gonzalez, or at theme parks or the beach. It was eventually determined that a woman named Zenaida Fernandez-Gonzalez did in fact exist, but that she had never met Caylee Anthony, any member of the Anthony family, or any of Caylee's friends. On July 13, 2008, while doing yard work, Cindy and George Anthony found a notice from the post office for a certified letter affixed on their front door. George Anthony picked up the certified letter from the post office on July 15, 2008, and found that his daughter's car was in a tow yard. When George picked up the car, both he and the tow yard attendant noted a strong smell coming from the trunk. Both later stated that they believed the odor to be that of a decomposing body. When the trunk was opened, it contained a bag of trash, but no human remains. Cindy Anthony reported Caylee missing that day, July 15, to the Orange County Sheriff's Office. During the same telephone call, Caylee Anthony confirmed to the 911 operator that Caylee had been missing for 31 days. Sounding distraught, Cindy said, "There is something wrong. I found my daughter's car today and it smells like Terry Spin, a dead body in the damn car." Investigation. When Detective Yuri Melich, with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, began investigating the disappearance of Caylee Anthony. He found discrepancies in Casey's signed statement. When questioned, Casey said Caylee had been kidnapped by Zenaide Fernandez Gonzalez, who she also identified as Zanny, Caylee's nanny. Although Casey had talked about her, Zanny had never been seen by Casey's family or friends, and in fact there was no nanny. Casey also told police that she was working at Universal Studios, a lie she had been telling her parents for years. Investigators brought Casey to Universal Studios on July 16, 2008, the day after Caylee was reported missing, and asked her to show them her office. Casey led police around for a while before admitting that she had been fired years before. Caylee Anthony was first arrested on July 16, 2008. And was charged the following day with giving false statements to law enforcement, child neglect, and obstruction of a criminal investigation. The judge denied bail, saying Casey had shown woeful disregard for the welfare of her child. On July 22, 2008, after a bond hearing, the judge set bail at $500,000. On August 21, 2008, after 1 month of incarceration, she was released from the Orange County Jail after her $500,000 bond was posted by the nephew of California bail bondsman Leonard Padilla in hopes that she would cooperate and Caylee would be found. On August 11, 12, and 13, 2008, meter reader Roy Cronk called police about a suspicious object found in a forested area near the Anthony residence. In the first instance, he was directed by the sheriff's office to call a tip line, which he did, receiving no return call. On the second instance, he again called the sheriff's office, eventually was met by 2 police officers and reported to them that he had seen what appeared to be a skull near a grey bag. On that occasion, the officer conducted a short search and stated he did not see anything. On December 11, 2008, Cronk again called the police. They searched and found the remains of a child in a trash bag. Investigative teams recovered duct tape which was hanging from Caylee's hair and some tissue left on her skull. Over the next 4 days, more bones were found in the wooded area near the spot where the remains initially had been discovered. On December 19, 2008, medical examiner Dr. Jan Garavaglia confirmed that the remains found were those of Caylee Anthony. The death was ruled a homicide, and the cause of death listed as undetermined. Arrests and charges. Caylee Anthony was offered a limited immunity deal on July 29, 2008, by prosecutors related to the false statements given to law enforcement about locating her child, which was renewed on August 25, to expire August 28. She did not take it. On September 5, 2008, she was released again on bail on all pending charges after being fitted with an electronic tracking device. Her $500,000 bond was posted by her parents, Cindy and George Anthony, who signed a promissory note for the bond. On October 14, 2008, Caylee Anthony was indicted by a grand jury on charges of first-degree murder, aggravated child abuse, aggravated manslaughter of a child, and 4 counts of providing false information to police. She was later arrested. Judge John Jordan ordered that she be held without bond. On October 21, 2008, the charges of child neglect were dropped against Caylee, according to the state attorney's office, because, as the evidence proved that the child was deceased, the state sought an indictment on the legally appropriate charges. On October 28, Anthony was arraigned and pleaded not guilty to all charges. On April 13, 2009, prosecutors announced that they planned to seek the death penalty in the case. Evidence. 400 pieces of evidence were presented. A strand of hair was recovered from the trunk of Caylee's car which was microscopically similar to hair taken from Caylee Anthony's hairbrush. The strand showed root banding, in which hair roots form a dark band after death, which was consistent with hair from a dead body. The discoverer of the remains repeated the same basic story that he had told police. On Friday, October 24, 2008, a forensic report by Dr. Arpad Vass of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory judged that results from an air sampling procedure performed in the trunk of Caylee Anthony's car showed chemical compounds consistent with a decompositional event. based on the presence of 5 key chemical compounds out of over 400 possible chemical compounds that Dr. Vass research group considers typical of decomposition. Investigators stated that the trunk smelled strongly of human decomposition, but human decomposition was not specified on the laboratory scale. The process has not been affirmed by a Daubert test in the courts. Vass group also stated there was chloroform in the car trunk. In October 2009, officials released 700 pages of documents related to the Anthony investigation, including records of Google searches of the terms neck breaking and how to make chloroform on a computer accessible to Caylee Anthony, presented by the prosecutors as evidence of a crime. According to detectives, crime scene evidence included residue of a heart-shaped sticker found on duct tape over the mouth of Caylee's skull. However, the laboratory was not able to capture a heart shape photographically after some duct tape was subjected to dye testing. A blanket found at the crime scene matched Caylee's bedding at her grandparents' home. Among photos entered into evidence was one from the computer of Ricardo Morales, an ex-boyfriend of Caylee Anthony, depicting a poster with the caption, "Win her over with chloroform." Witness John Dennis Bradley's software, developed for computer investigations, was used by the prosecution to indicate that Caylee Anthony had conducted extensive computer searches on the word chloroform 84 times, and to suggest that Anthony had planned to commit murder. He later discovered that a flaw in the software misread the forensic data and that the word chloroform had been searched for only one time, and the website in question offered information on the use of chloroform in the 19th century. Attorneys and jury. The lead prosecutor in the case was Assistant State Attorney Linda Drain Burdick. Assistant State Attorneys Frank George and Jeff Ashton completed the prosecution team. Lead counsel for the defense was Jose Baez, a Florida criminal defense attorney. Attorneys Caylee Mason, Dorothy Clay Sims, and Ann Finnell served as co-counsel. During the trial, attorney Mark Lipman represented George and Cindy Anthony. Selection of the jury began on May 9, 2011, at the Pinellas County Criminal Justice Center in Clearwater, Florida. Because the case had been so widely reported in the Orlando area, jurors were brought from Pinellas County to Orlando. Jury selection took longer than expected and ended on May 20, 2011, with 12 jurors and 5 alternates being sworn in. The panel consisted of 9 women and 8 men. The trial took 6 weeks, during which time the jury was sequestered to avoid influence from information available outside the courtroom. Opening statements. The trial began on May 24, 2011, at the Orange County Courthouse, with Judge Belvin Perry presiding. In the opening statements, lead prosecutor Linda Drain Burdick described the story of the disappearance of Caylee Anthony day by day. The prosecution alleged an intentional murder and sought the death penalty against Caylee Anthony. Prosecutors stated that Anthony used chloroform to render her daughter unconscious before putting duct tape over her nose and mouth to suffocate her, and left Caylee's body in the trunk of her car for a few days before disposing of it. They characterized Anthony as a party girl who killed her daughter to free herself from parental responsibility and enjoy her personal life. The defense, led by Jose Baez, claimed in opening statements that Caylee drowned accidentally in the family's pool on June 16, 2008, and was found by George Anthony, who told Caylee she would spend the rest of her life in jail for child neglect and then proceeded to cover up Caylee's death. Baez argued this is why Caylee Anthony went on with her life and failed to report the incident for 31 days. He alleged that it was the habit of a lifetime for Caylee to hide her pain and pretend nothing was wrong, because she had been sexually abused by George Anthony since she was 8 years old and her brother Lee also had made advances toward her. Baez also questioned whether Roy Kronk, the meter reader who found the bones, had actually removed them from another location, and further alleged that the police department's investigation was compromised by their desire to feed a media frenzy about a child's murder, rather than a more mundane drowning. He admitted that Caylee had lied about there being a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?